Welcome to the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, John Martin Keith. Celebrities, working class musicians, and people who work behind the scenes in all areas of the music industry will share their stories, encourage you, and give practical advice of ways you can make a living doing what you love in the music industry. This episode is brought to you by Edenbrook Productions. Edenbrook Productions is the company I founded to help musicians grow in their craft. Are you a songwriter, but maybe you've been told your songs aren't quite there yet? Or are your songs ready, but you don't feel stage ready? Or maybe music is your passion, but you feel imprisoned by your day job and you don't know what to do next to make your dream a reality. Well, Edenbrook Productions is here to help. We offer consulting services via phone call, Skype, and FaceTime. And for the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast listeners, we're offering an introductory 1-hour consultation special. Click on the link in the show notes to contact me, and let's get you making a living in the music industry. Hey everyone, welcome to Season 4 of You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry. I am so very excited that you have joined me once again and taken time out of your day to come and be a part of this podcast. Thank you so much for coming back and being part of Season 4. I'm so excited. I can't believe we're 4 seasons into this podcast already. This is an amazing thing. And so thank you guys, first and foremost, for coming and taking this journey with me, with all of these amazing guests that I've had for the past 3 seasons, going into 4 now. And I'm super excited to kick off Season 4, Episode 1 with one of my favorite people in the entire world, the man, the myth, the legend, my buddy, Mr. Steven Curtis Chapman. Of course, you guys have heard the stories over the past 3 seasons already, many times. Steven and I are both from Paducah, Kentucky. His dad, Herb Chapman Sr., was my guitar teacher for many years, and I worked for him for many, many years, and he's like a second father to me. And so the Chapman family is family to me, and so I'm excited to have him on to talk about 35 years of being in Christian music. He is the #1 Christian music artist of all time. Just received the BMI Icon Award and has joined the ranks of Barry Manilow, Sting, Dolly Parton. I mean, this is amazing, the things that he's accomplished. And he has a brand new album called Still that just came out on October the 14th. So we're going to talk about that album, the release of the new album, and what went into that process, as well as talk about the amazing history that he's had over the past 35 years. And so sit back, relax, get a pen, take some notes, and get ready for an amazing conversation. All right, everyone, welcome to Episode 1, Season 4 of You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry, and I am with one of my favorite people in the entire world. The past 35 years, he has accomplished something no one else has ever accomplished in Christian music. 49 #1 singles, the most awarded Christian music artist in history, 59 GMA Dove Awards, 5 Grammy Awards, American Music Awards, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of albums sold. Is it billions yet, or just millions?
no, but you can just go.
Just
Marty,
it's like McDonald's,
wherever you
billions
go.
and billions sold, right?
Yeah, you go. Yes, from if you say it, it's
true.
official. It's true.
Yeah.
So Marty Keith said.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my very exciting special guest, Mr. Steven Curtis Chapman.
Hey, now this is when that really cool music plays, right? In the because podcast, like we don't hear it now, but this is going to be so cool. And it's cool music when you start.
Exactly.
And all that stuff. So,
yeah,
sweet.
Like
See, I like all
the big entrance.
Yes, that's it.
Happen.
Yeah, as long as you have that, like a big, epic sort of da 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 da.
Yeah,
that'll be perfect right there. But
that'd be awesome.
No, it is great to be with you, brother. We got a lot of history, and just good to be hanging with a Paducah brother.
Yeah, and we don't get to spend near enough time together. We don't get to see each other hardly. We live like barely 20 minutes away from each other.
Yeah,
and never see each other here. So we need to remedy that. We need to get you and me and Herbie, your brother Herbie, need to go grab some breakfast or some lunch and just hang out and visit.
Yes, so, man, get caught up. Of course, if Herbie's there, it just got you just got 3 times as long. So you just have to be prepared for that, because once Herbie starts talking, it goes on and on. Who knows where it's going to go? But it's never dull. It's always an adventure when Herbie's involved.
He is a blast. So now people who listen to this podcast now for the past 4 seasons are going to be very familiar with you, because I talk about you all the time on the podcast. I'm always relating things back to you because our history and what you have done and throughout your career and what I've done through my career are very intertwined, just because of your dad, Herb Chapman Sr., being both of our guitar teachers. And I worked for your dad for many, many years, and you guys are family to me. I mean, your dad literally is a second father to me, and you and Herbie are like big brothers to me. So, there's a lot there. So I'm grateful, first of all, for you guys, and for the friendship that we've had over the years, and the support that you've given me, and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, first and foremost.
Absolutely.
So usually on this podcast, we go back and we kind of tell the guest, okay, tell us your story, tell us where you're from, what got you started in the music industry, and all that kind of stuff. We're going to kind of bypass that to some degree, because I think everybody knows your history of being from Paducah and how you grew up and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer people that are not familiar to that extent to say, go buy Steven Curtis Chapman's autobiography, Between Heaven and the Real World, and give you a plug there. And
thank you.
And everything that they need to know about you growing up in Paducah is going to be in that book.
Yes,
and then some,
absolutely. Right? It's like go read that and then come back to me in 2 months and we'll continue the conversation. Exactly. It's kind of a thick book, and I'm really sorry for that, for whoever picks it up. And my publisher was not happy with me, and I came in and I was like, and that was with leaving probably, a third again as much on the editing room floor. But there's just a lot of story there. I probably should have written it, 20 years ago, and then there wouldn't have been quite as much to try to tell. And I don't know how much of it is as interesting to people to read as it was for me to tell and live. But I felt like it was all important. So it's kind of thick. It's kind of thick and a lot there. But I went into my publisher several times and took in Billy Graham's autobiography or biography, which is about twice as thick. Right. And I said, now I am in no way comparing myself to Billy Graham, but I'm saying it could be more. It could be worse. And look, so it could be worse. So look, I'm only 2 inches, and his is like 3.5. So anyway, but thanks for the shout out. I'm so thankful I got to write that book and just to tell the story, because you do interviews like this and we get an hour, and we get, or on radio, you get 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever. Yeah. And you just always kind of skim the surface in some way. So I was very blessed to get to finally have an opportunity to just dive deep into some of the journey and the stories and the life, that I've been living all these, 35 years of music. 35 years ago, my record came out. Yeah. And I'm just going to say it and then go on record, because it's kind of already on record if you look at Wikipedia. But I am coming up on 6-0, my 60th birthday. If you can believe that, in November. So 60 years of living, that's a lot to try to cram into a few pages. Yeah. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah. So we're going to just say, go check out Between Heaven and the Real World autobiography to get all of those back story details on how you grew up in Paducah. I do want to, I don't know if you remember the first time that we actually ever met. I was taking guitar lessons. It was 1986. So I was in 6th grade at the time. We're 12 years apart. So you would have been in college, probably at Anderson, I'm guessing, at that point. And so, so
86.
You would fill in for your dad as a guitar teacher sometimes. And so you were in on a break or summer. I don't remember when in the year was, but you were in town in Paducah. I was taking lessons from your dad. And this was on Lone Oak Road in that shopping center right next to Burger Queen, not Burger King. Yes. Remember Burger Queen?
Burger Queen. Yes,
I've got a belt buckle. I've got the belt buckle of Burger Queen.
Are you serious? Oh, man, that is worth something. Don't lose that belt buckle.
So, but I was taking lessons, and you were filling in for your dad.
Yeah.
And that's the first time that we met. You were teaching me a guitar lesson that day. And I don't know why. You were not Steven, quote unquote, Steven Curtis Chapman at the time. You were still Steve Chapman, right?
Yeah.
And no albums out. And so, not huge fanfare and all that kind of stuff. But I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but I remember you had on white Nikes, really light blue Levi blue jeans and a bright red sweatshirt and the beginning stages of the mullet. Just kind of getting going.
The mullet infancy.
Right?
Oh, wow.
And I don't know why I remember all that. And you were standing up because you had to stand up to type at that typewriter.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, I remember that clear as day. And that's the first time that we ever met. You teaching me guitar that.
That is so crazy. So, I mean, I know we've known each other for years and years, and I know, you worked with my dad and see you at the store and all, but that's blowing my mind so I actually gave you that day a guitar lesson.
Yeah, you gave me a couple. You gave me a couple over the early years, but that was the first one. That's one that sticks out to me. Anyway, so let me ask you this, just so we can actually physically get into an interview here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. Tell us what's like a major impact, first of all, that your dad has on you as a musician, as a guitar player. Like what would you say is one of the most important things that as a musician that he has ever taught you that you've carried throughout all these years?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I was saying this to someone earlier. They were kind of asking about the history and was your dad one of those dads who was pretty driven to, hey, you can do that better, or, because he was a musician. I was talking about what a great musician. I mean, still one of the, great guitar players, with his own unique style, and so much of what I do, guitar wise is just a unique style that my dad, taught me. And just, I was, and it wasn't ever, with my dad, other than maybe the first few times, it was never a formal lesson with him. It wasn't sit down and, okay, son, I'm going to, today we're going to have a guitar lesson number, 17. It was really just, I mean, I remember the first song, that dad taught me on guitar, Folsom Prison Blues. Sure. And I would ask him, it was probably more, in our case, me going, Dad, show me how to do that. Show me how to do this. I heard this on a record. How do you do this? Those were probably my lessons, because Dad was at the music store most of the time, and I was catching him on weekends or whatever. But what I do remember, and what I think was I didn't know it at the time, but was in many ways defining for me of how I would approach music, is my dad was a firm believer. When he came to faith when I was 7 years old, and he'd always been a great musician. I would hear him in the kitchen where he would set up a little recording studio, and his buddies would come over, and I have great old film footage of that of him setting up his little reel-to-reel recorder and a microphone, and he would record songs that he had written, and then he'd go up and down Music Row in Nashville, here in Nashville, and try to get his songs, published or whatever. And he actually did have a publishing deal for a short time. But I know he would spend hours and hours, and he took it. I just remember he was very serious. He'd shut the door. I wasn't even allowed to go in because, it'd be a disturbance, I'd stand at the door and kind of listen. I mean, I'd go in, before they started, but after it's like, we're recording now, shut the door. So there was even from then a sense of, he's creating something, and it's serious, and, it's not, there's a sense of, I'm doing this, very intentional and very deliberate, and not just kind of, hey, it's music, just, whatever. Yeah. Let's just grab a guitar and just jam along. It was always, and in fact, for that reason, I am sometimes intimidated, guys like, hey, we're just gonna have a jam session. I'm like, okay, well, we need to practice, we need what key are we in? And where's the chord? What are we going to do? Who's going to take the first break? Who's going to take, it's all that stuff. You hang around those bluegrassers long enough, the guys who are just the geniuses, and they kind of innately know when it's going to happen. But I think my dad was, he was a perfectionist. And so as a result, when I was a kid and we started, when his faith really began to inform his music and what we would do as a family, and sit around the kitchen table and sing gospel songs together, sing Bill Gaither songs, with the idea of, eventually we're going to sing this together in church. My dad even then had a kind of a mantra that was, if we're going to do something for Jesus, we're going to do it with excellence. we're not going to phone it in. There's none of this, hey, we didn't really practice, so just pray for us as we sing. A lot of that stuff that goes on in some of those gospel singings, where it's like, we didn't really, hey, let's just get up here and throw this together. My dad was like, no, we're not throwing something together if we're doing it for God. We're going to do it with excellence. We're going to do it well. And I think from the very beginning, that was sort of ingrained in me, that if you do something, especially if you're going to put the name of Jesus above it, or you're doing this, in the name of, Jesus or for the glory of God, then it needs to be, you need to practice, you need to rehearse, you need to know what you're doing and do it with excellence, perfecting your craft, whatever that is. So as a guitar player, as I was a kid, really more than anything, starting out wanting to just be the best guitar player I could be. As you know, because you grew up, a little bit around me, Herbie was the singer. Right. Like my dad. I mean, Herbie, my brother, had the golden pipes. He got my dad's voice. Mm-hmm. I got the music. I got the guitar, and Herb got the voice, basically. And so we did music together all while I was growing up. And I would occasionally sing, one song to Herb's. Herbie's 5 or 6 or 10 songs. I would do one, but I was his backup guy. So backup vocals, harmony, singing, and guitar playing. That was kind of my forte. That was where I focused. And but I think, it was really my dad, and even what he does with his students. He doesn't demand excellence. He's not at all. A hard driving. Teacher, intense at all, but he just invites excellence, I guess, in a way. Yeah. I feel like that's sure. I've never thought of it that way, but he sort of invites that out in you because you want to do it well, and he sort of puts it out there that, hey, if you're going to do this, let's do it. Let's really do it well. Practice, because you're going to enjoy it more. If the more you feel confident with this, it's that sense of confidence that comes with over and over and over and over again, repeating it, do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. I remember as a kid, we would just get so frustrated, sitting around the kitchen table and trying to sing a song together. And Dad would say, okay, let's do it one more time. Let's do it one more time. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a little kid going, Dad, this is the 20th one more time. Is one more time usually means one more time. We're doing this now for the 30th one more time. It's right. Like, but that, I think that was instilling in me this sense of just doing it with excellence.
So, okay, so that's going to lead me into something I was going to ask you about later on, but we're kind of already in it, and I think this is a good segue. So, now we know that your boys Caleb and Will Franklin have grown up, obviously under you doing music, and now have Colony House, which is amazing, and they put out incredible music that is just really unique in how they do it, and love their music. So how does what Herb taught you spill over into how Caleb and Will grew up and you training them to become professional musicians? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think the old adage, more is caught than taught. I think my boys caught a lot of that from me. Again, I don't remember being, now they may remember this differently. The interview you might get with them might be, Dad was he was a hard driving, he was a stickler, because they did play in my band and they toured with me for 5 years, and they were young. I mean, Will Franklin turned 16 on Winter Jam tour with me, playing in front of arenas full of people, and we gave him his 16th birthday, and that was a lot of pressure. In fact, I remember looking at Will Franklin one time, and it's this picture still breaks my heart. I remember looking at on stage 5 minutes before we're supposed to go on stage, and he was not only the drummer, and he, like I said, turned 16, so he would either have been 15 or 16, and he was also running the computer, which had a few tracks, a few stems, on track that we couldn't cover live, some keyboard parts, I think, and some background vocal stuff. And I looked at him from side stage because I'm getting ready, all geared up and ready to go on stage. And I see him, this computer has crashed. And I see Will wiping tears from his eyes because he's feeling the pressure. And I literally look up and I see him like he's messing with it. And he's kind of wiping the tears away and kind of getting ready. And man, everything in my dad's heart wanted to run on stage and just say to the arena full of people, hey, we're going to need a few minutes, and kind of rescue him in this moment. And yet I also, the dad part of me went, he's figuring this out, and these are the moments, that are defining for him to go, I got to figure this out and make it happen. And even if it means we play, and I think that night we ended up playing with, no track, no click, on the tracks, and it was still great and it worked out great,
sure.
and he had to learn that process. Hey, if this crashes, what's my plan B? And I got to have that, but everything inside of me as a dad, I still, that scene still makes me get teary when I think about my boy up there, getting teary, and feeling that weight. I think as they started to really play music when they're little, I'm just like, man, explore, and when they would come to me, kind of like I did, when I'd go to my dad and say, Dad, I want to learn something. Show me how to do this, then I would teach them. I actually intentionally, when Caleb really started to get serious about guitar lessons, I found a teacher that I knew here in Nashville had a great reputation, because I thought, I want to remove myself. I don't want to, if I'm his teacher and I'm the one saying, hey, practice, and no, you're doing that. No, let's do that again. Let's do it like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that relationship, with my son. I want to be the one cheering him on. I want to be the one sitting there, listening to the new thing he's learned and just going, whoa, how'd you do that? Show me how you did that, and so I'm glad I did that with him for a couple of years. And some of the stuff he wanted to learn was stuff even out of he was we were listening to John Pizzarelli and like this jazz stuff that I didn't even really know how to play. I just knew it sounded cool. And so he was trying to learn some of that stuff, and this guy could sort of take him, into that world a little bit. Yeah. So, I'm really glad. But then when they started playing music themselves, I do remember specifically, Caleb would say, Dad, what do you think? I've got this song idea, particularly when they started writing. And a few times early on, I'd say, well, I would do, where I would go is here with that chorus. I'd go to this place. And we did a few collaboration things that way. But then there was a point where I started to realize, Caleb, he is going to do, if I don't speak into this, and I'd say, well, where are you going to go? And he would go somewhere that I wouldn't have gone. And sometimes even internally, I was going like, I think it might be better if you went to the major in this chorus and you lift it and but that's what I would do. That's what Steven Curtis Chapman would do. Well, Caleb Chapman is going to do something different. And the artist in there, the creator in there, I want to know what that is. Cause you're probably going to go somewhere, blaze a different trail. And, I want to encourage that, while I'll give direction or whatever. So, and sure enough, he starts writing songs and creating the music that would become the music of Colony House that, is just brilliant, I think. And he does things that he and Will together and their band that I would never dream of. I never would have thought of, and I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have gone there. And yet the music that they've created is their whole own kind of brand and their own thing. Yeah. So it's been that kind of process, throughout. They'll still ask my advice. In fact, one of the things I'm most excited about with my new record is when I sat down and thought, okay, I think I really have some songs that I want to record and I want to make some new music. But I want to bring some new, fresh ideas into this recording process, even into the writing process. Who has inspired me the most creatively in the last, 5-10 years musically that I could actually access to maybe make music with? And top of my list was, man, I love that band Colony House. I wonder if I could get those guys. They're so much cooler than me. Maybe I could get them. So, call them up and remind them all the meals I've bought them over the years. Exactly. And all the times I've, put a roof over their head and said, hey, would you come help me produce my new music? And they did, so I kind of got to work with the dream team, as I called them on my new music. But anyway.
And that's awesome. And we're going to talk about the new album here in just a little bit. So we're going to get into that. I want to talk about songwriting, and people ask me all the time. They ask you all the time, what comes first, music or the lyrics, or is it both at the same time? And the answer from both of us usually is yes. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
D, all of the above.
All of the above. It just depends on, what the situation is.
Yeah.
But, I've grown up, you have been like, I tell everybody, you're my mentor. You're the guy that I've always looked to musically. I've followed in your footsteps. And when I was 15 and 16, first starting out, writing my own music and playing shows in Paducah and around the area, half of my shows were Steven Curtis songs, just taking your tracks at the Great Events or whatever and playing through those. And then I have my 2 or 3 songs I'd have until I could build those things up. But as you've written songs over the years, and I want to ask about the technical aspect of songwriting when it comes to you, because these hit songs that you've written, I've been teaching Facts or Facts recently. The past few weeks I've been teaching that to some students.
Oh wow.
And I had to go back and to sit down and listen. I'm like, oh crud, what is he doing here? Okay. Because that song is like 5 different keys and that you're jumping around to, and I'm like, okay, how do you think about that? Like, how do you come up with some of those licks that move all over the place, and then it becomes this genius number 1 hit gem that we all love?
It's funny. I just recently dusted Facts or Facts off for a concert. I was doing just a solo thing, and somebody requested that song, and I had to like relearn it myself. I had to go back and go, what the heck was I like? No, 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 no. It starts out in, A,
it's A, and then goes into C.
Yeah.
And then goes into G in the bridge. And then oh my gosh.
Somehow gets back to A, and then somehow gets back. Yeah. And here's the weird thing. I'm going to, you may want to edit this out, and you have freedom to do whatever, because I've been asked, through the years, like, man, would you teach a songwriting course, or would you, come, write a book, write a curriculum, do this. And honestly, every time I get asked that, I'm like, I get really nervous. And because I'm like, crap, they're going to find out that if I expose, myself that way, that I don't really know what I'm doing. I just go where the music takes me. And that doesn't, but I can't say that out loud, because I need to figure out what is the method? How did I do this? And what method was I using? What, was that the Dorian scale? Was that the, what was it? And it's kind of like, I never could learn that stuff. I tried, and maybe somewhere it got in my brain, when I was in college in jazz class, jazz band, and trying to keep up, and follow all those chords and follow all those scales, and it was just like, it sounds kind of cool, and I kind of, when I hear it, I sort of can tell what's happening, but I can't explain it. I certainly can't read it, on paper, and so, when I'm writing a song, like Facts or Facts, to just take the one example, and back to the question, do the words come first? The music come first? Mm-hmm. It's D, it's all of the above. Cause in that, example, and every song is different. But if I think about that one, I think, I remember I want to write a song, about, there's a lot of discussion, debate about, what's truth, absolute truth. Mm-hmm. I was particularly influenced at that time in my life and faith walk and all of that through the teaching, the writing of the thinking of the brilliant man, Chuck Colson, right, who really influenced me. And actually I got to be a friend of his, and he is with Jesus now, and I miss him tremendously. He was one of the brightest minds that I think God has ever given us in terms of articulating the faith and really being a defender of truth. And yet having this winsomeness and this gentleness about him, even though he could just bury you with his intellect and his ability to articulate truth. But I remember a lot of what he was saying. I was like, man, I want to say that in a song. that's what influenced Dancing with the Dinosaur, that song, because it's some of the things that he talked about absolute truth, and, it's gone, it's kind of leaving. And so Facts Are Facts was, there's some things that I just believe, it's the law of gravity. You can argue it and say, I don't want God, a God telling me how it works, so
Right.
I'll just, if I want to fly, I'll just jump off this building and fly, and it's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. So, but I want to do that in a fun enough way so it's accessible and approachable. And, because you could say facts are facts,
Yeah.
and with a scowl and make people kind of go, well, okay, whatever you say, next. Or can I make this winsome and something that's fun and engaging and draw you in and kind of my own journey? And so, a song like that, Facts Are Facts, well, it's got to be a rock and roll song. It's got to be inviting and exciting and kind of make you want to sing along. So, just start playing this riff that seems to fit the song. Did I sit down and say, now, let's see, technically, how am I going to, what play this in the key of A and this chord and that, it just happens. That's
Right.
music. That's creativity. That's the wonder for me of this whole gift of music and this gift of creativity is you can't put it in a bottle. It's pretty hard to put in a book. And which for me is a lot like God, you can put it in a book, but he's going to blow way past the pages that
Sure.
you can, that you can explain it. And so that song is a good example. And for whatever reason, I got to the chorus. Did I think, hey, I need to change keys here? It was probably more of a matter of many times for me, the chorus needs to lift. The chorus needs to, I've been kind of in this place. Now, when I get to that chorus, I want you to hear this in a different way. I want you to kind of lean in even more or kind of fist in the air. So, well, the key I'm in right now vocally doesn't allow me to do that. So, it needs to be in this key. How do I get to that key? Well, let's see. I don't know. Are there rules? If there are, I'm going to break them and because I don't know what they are. So, that's part of the good news of not knowing the rules, of not knowing, well, that's not the scale. You can't do that. It's like, well, I got there one way or another and I didn't crash and burn too bad on the way. So I guess that works.
Well, they always say that, for music theory, you have to know the rules before you can break them. But,
yeah. Okay. Good.
That's what they say.
Well, there
but
you
we
go.
can let's just break them and just do it.
Just break them, even if you don't know them. Yeah, there you go. I'd rather just break them without knowing them. So that's truly, I think, a lot of the times it's, I don't know that I've ever used this phrase, but it's sort of what comes to mind is that you follow where the music takes you. It's kind of just that's really what I've done. It's just the music has taken me in this direction, so I'm going to kind of go where it's leading.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And that's encouraging for listeners to know, okay, hey man, this guy's got 49 number ones and multiple awards and everything. And I'm trying to learn how to write songs, or I'm trying to write a song and it's not working out. How did he do it? Oh, wait, he's doing it the same way that I am. I'm just trying to figure it out by the seat of our pants.
Yes. You just kind of figuring it out and, a lot of, banging your head, against the piano keys or, the guitar, it's like, I've hit a wall. This isn't making sense. This isn't moving me. And I've thought about that so many times, and if there's one rule, I heard this years and years ago, and I've repeated it so many times. I was in a songwriting class, the first songwriting class I ever took, and maybe one of the only ones, when I was at Anderson College. And there was a guy who had apparently written songs, particularly for the church. And I didn't know his name. He wasn't a pop, music songwriter or whatever. So I'm sure there's volumes of great songwriting courses and teachers. But I just remember this guy saying this: if a song moves you, take that song, tear it apart, dismantle it, look at it through from all angles, kind of through a magnifying glass, and try to figure out, why did that song move you the way it did? And in that process, you're gonna be learning. That process is gonna teach you, more about how to create songs that will move others. Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do.
Sure. Yep.
With writing music is to connect, a heart to a heart, to move someone in some way, whether it's to make them sad, so they feel maybe a little less alone in their sadness,
Mm-hmm.
or to make them feel hopeful, to make them, it's you feel less alone. Something in that song somebody wrote. I mean, I'm thinking recently um, of a song that I've known of the Killers, and my boys are big fans, and I know they're, rock stars, and
Right.
and some of their music, I'm like, I don't know, I just don't get it. And it's cool, but I'm not sure. And Caleb and Will, my boys, said, Dad, listen to the record, Wonderful, Wonderful of the Killers. They said there's some songs on there particularly I think you're going to really connect with. And I got to the song Rut on the Killers' Wonderful, Wonderful record. I don't know if you haven't listened to that song. If you're a songwriter, I can tell you, I'm into the chorus of that song and I'm weeping. I mean, I'm just, and I'm kind of going, why? What is it about this song? And yeah, it's the music, and it's Brandon Flowers' voice. It's the way he is singing it, the honesty, the passion. He's one of these singers that doesn't do a whole lot of auto tuning and fixing his voice. I mean, it's kind of what it is. It's the raw passion,
Yeah.
and not that he needs to. He's an amazing singer, but I felt like this guy had just kind of opened his heart and said, I'm gonna tell you some things. I'm gonna trust you as a friend. I'm gonna tell you some stuff really deep in my heart. And turns out, I mean, it's a song about his wife and her journey with struggling with some intense depression. And I think part of that is why I connected with it so deeply, because my journey with Mary Beth and her lifelong battle with depression. And man, it undid me, and it moved me, and it still does. I can put the song on probably right now and tears will come to my eyes. Something's happening in that, that kind of music. And I think if we tap into that as songwriters, that's kind of step number 1, and probably step number 10, and probably every step in between of what we're ultimately trying to do.
Yeah. And your songs have done that for all of us. I mean, so many of us that listen to Steven Curtis music, we're either jumping and jiving and excited about, Facts Are Facts and Treasure of You and Lord of the Dance and things like that. And then, and then Jesus Will Meet You There will come on, and that will undo me, and Spring Is Coming, and those songs, just because of the rawness and the honesty in those songs. And, it's like, this is a human being, and we all relate on these levels,
Yeah.
So let me ask you this real quick. As far as Heaven in the Real World, that album goes, which what Facts Are Facts was on, and we were talking about that. I remember reading back when that album came out, which was 1994. Long,
Wow.
crazy, right?
Yeah. You're
I was in college.
16?
No, I was in college at that point.
All right.
Yeah. But you wrote like 80 songs for that album. I remember reading somewhere, so I wanted to ask, okay, and at the time you were with Sparrow Records. So when you're writing 80 songs for an album that can only have 10 to maybe 12 or 13 songs on the album, what is the process for narrowing down 80 songs to 10 or 12 or something like that, and you having to pick, okay, which ones are going to make it, which ones are not? And is that a sole decision? Who in the label is making those decisions with you? And, and where does the contention lie, in making those decisions? I really want this song on the album, and the label people are like, no, we don't want that. We want this one instead, and, how does that work for you? And then for the 68 whatever songs that didn't make it, what happens to those songs? Do they just end up in a file somewhere that never get to see the light of day again? Or do you ever go back and look at those and try to resurrect them later on in life?
Yeah. A little bit of all of the above. And to be fair, for those, songwriters out there, like I would be hearing that going, well, crap, that means I got to write 80 songs to get, to get a really great album. It probably was something like 40 or 50, to be fair, as I recall on some of those. It was a ridiculous amount, more than I needed, but, and also to be fair, it was not finished songs. So they were, I don't think this album is a good example, my new music, which, thankfully, now with streaming in the new world order of music, I went in and said, hey, I've got probably about 30 song ideas. And I narrowed it down to 17, and I said, I want to keep all of them. So we recorded all of them, and they'll all eventually be a part of this record. Some will be saved for a deluxe release that'll come back in the spring. So, because that's kind of cool now.
That's a
used to
hint
it's
right
like
there, right?
a CD, you can't get everything on one CD. You only have so many. And an album, a vinyl disc, you could only get so many minutes on it. So part of the beauty of this new world is you can do as many songs as you want. But those songs, that process would be going in with, I would have said, 40 to 50 songs. A lot of those were verse and chorus. They're not a finished out, song, because I'm trying to get, of those. I have this idea, I have this, and so I'll go sit down with the A&R guy at the time, Peter York. I'd sit with my producer, whether it's Brown Bannister or it's Phil Nash in the day, or even Brent Milligan more recently. Mm-hmm. And but I'd sit down and I'd say, okay, here's a batch of songs and things I want to say, and I'd play. Some would be finished songs, some would be my very cheesy, simple garage band versions once computers came along in garage band. But even in the old day of some were my little multi-track recordings on my first Fostex 8-track recorder that I had. So sometimes I'd go, I want to try to flesh this one out a little bit, because I want to present the idea a little more complete. But more often than not, it's me with a guitar or a piano fumbling my way through. The verse is kind of like this, it's facts are facts. I got this like guitar riff, and so here's the verse, and I play the verse, and then the chorus. And sometimes I'll be like, it's going to get to this key, I'm not really sure how it's going to get there, and then I'll play the chord, And I was blessed in the day for many years to have some amazing people in my world, creative people, particularly A&R, Peter York, who knew how to hear a song and help me mine from those ideas and those fumblings. Man, that's a song, something that's connecting here. That's a heart connect. I feel you in that.
Yeah.
I would come in with some ideas like, man, I think this is awesome. And I'd sing it and I kind of get done, and it's sort of this look of, I don't connect with that. I know you're super excited about it, but that one doesn't speak nearly as strongly to me as, A, B, C, and D. And so it would be that process of, and now some I would fight for, and I'd go, no, that one's got it. I'm telling you, that is a song that is, that one needs to be, be on this. And then inevitably there's kind of a grieving process, because there are some songs that just, I've got a song, in fact, that I wanted to put on this record, and every single person I played it for, kind of went, I'm not sure. No, that's not one. I wouldn't put that in the list. And I'm like, seriously? And I mean, right. I argued with him. I'd fight with him. And it's actually, there's a phrase, Martin Luther famously had this great phrase where he said, in talking about the devil and this formidable foe that the devil can be and is for us. But he made this great quote and said, even the devil is God's devil. God made and created even, Satan. Yeah. If we know the story, he was a heavenly being, fell from, heaven because, he wanted to be God and wanted to, then pride and all of that. And so I think that's such a great, I love that phrase. Even the devil is God's devil. So when we get kind of freaked out, I'm like, that's a great idea. I want to write that song. And every time I sing it for people, they go, oh man, I don't know. Even the devil is God's devil. I don't know. I'm like, Martin Luther said it, dude. Was you seriously like, you're going to argue with Martin Luther? But it didn't, I couldn't get it to connect with people. So there's always that process where it's like that song, I still think that song needs to be heard. And I have those songs. I've got a lot of them that I'll kind of find and go, man, I still think that song I ought to record that song. And then sometimes they do find their way into a song later. There's many times where I kind of go, that's a song. In fact, there's a song that I wanted to put on a record 20 years ago, written about my best friend in 7th grade. And he and I were in marching band together, and we played snare drums side by side. we got to go to Heath Middle School Marching Band.
Heath Middle School.
Yes, sir. We got to go to the Disney World Parade and march. They would let little local bands, high school bands, middle school bands come march in the parade. They may still do it. And somehow we got to go. And I'd never been, out of Paducah. We got to get on a bus and ride to Orlando, my first trip to Disney World. It was me and my best friend, Carlton Bell. And first time I rode, Space Mountain, first time I rode, all those rides, it was with my buddy Carlton Bell. And we raised money to go. We had to sell candy bars, chocolate candy bars up and down the street. Remember those World's Finest chocolate bars?
Oh, they're so good. And they're still so good.
Yeah, I know. I still love them.
With almonds, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I started writing this song years ago called Living Color. Carlton was black. And obviously, I was white, and we had this friendship that I didn't see in color. He didn't see me. We just were best friends. Mm-hmm. And he moved away. We lost touch, back in the day, didn't have cell phones and social media. So, and we weren't about to write letters, we were seventh grade dudes, but, I lost touch. And I've thought about Carlton. I've thought about that story. I started writing a song 20 years ago, went in, played it in the list of songs, loved it, loved what it said. It just didn't stay at the surface. It kind of found its way down somewhere in the leftover pile, but I never let go of that idea. And then all the stuff that started happening in our world in the last couple of years, the racial craziness, and us, like so many of us, wrestling with, how do I process this? How do I engage in the culture? How do I, not be tone deaf? How do I, what do I do with this as a believer, as as a guy who wants to, engage in this in the most right way, mm-hmm. And so this song came back to mind, and I finished it and I put it on this record. So Living Color finally is going to be heard probably 20 years later. It's very different than the song I originally wrote. Yeah. Kind of took a completely different form, but some of the heart and soul of it started way back there, and I just couldn't let go of it. And so somehow those ones, I think they find their way back to the surface, when they really need to be heard.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue into talking about the new album, which is called Still, and it has just released October the 14th. It just came out. Yep. And so I have to tell you, I am just like ecstatic. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for so long for new full music that's on the pop side. I love the bluegrass stuff, especially getting to have your dad and Herbie on there, and that was super exciting for me. Your dad finally got to play the Grand Ole Opry and be on a Grammy nominated album, and so cool. his dreams did come true. He got to fulfill some of those things. So that's super cool. But I've been waiting for, like so many people have been waiting for a new album from you for a while now. And so you've already put out the title track Still, and the first radio single, Don't Lose Heart, and I love that. And then I'm Alive just released a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And these are all amazing songs. And again, coming back to the songwriting aspect of it, just like we were talking about Facts or Facts, all these, one of the things that I love about you and the way that you write music, and this is one of the things that I've tried to emulate over the years, and where I was saying that you're my mentor in this kind of stuff, because I'm not a shredder. I'm not Brad Paisley and Keith Urban and Slash and these guys that can just rip a guitar to shreds. I've never been that guy, but I love guitar riffs, guitar licks, that make a song. That's what I love about Lord of the Dance and The Great Adventure and Treasure of You, all these things that are like these snippets that as soon as you hear it, that's that song. And that's what I love. I love playing that kind of stuff. And so, I've always been like you in that regard. And I love the song I'm Alive, like the chorus structure of how you play that song. And it just kind of walks up this scale of whatever it is that you're playing. I'm like, dude, that is so good. So tell us about the album and kind of some of those songs.
Well, I'll say this, part of the journey of this record has been, I mean, it was a journey, and it was a hard journey because, deciding to make another record, which a lot of people even don't even, what's that, a record? What's an album? Because streaming, it's changed everything about music, how people consume music, how they listen to it. You and I, Marty, you're, younger than me, but you're still, been around long enough to remember those days when you bought a record, you put it on. Yeah. You bought
I still
a CD.
listen in my car.
You put it on, track one, and you took a journey.
Yeah.
You read the whole book. You didn't just get chapter 14, and you got the whole story. And not every song, made you want to get up and dance, and not every song made you, want to sit and cry. You had all of that, and you got to experience, which is life is. You got your days that are, man, I feel great. Let's go. You got your days where I don't know if I'm going to make it today, and then a whole lot of days in between. It's like, man, I'm just kind of here, and I just got to show up and keep going. And faith is like that, and songs. So I love being able to do that, and I've done that for many years with records. But music changes, my place in it changes. I am incredibly blessed in that, I have records that people will reference, like you have with Heaven in the Real World, and songs that people will say, man, that song. I did an interview earlier where a guy was just like, man, the Great Adventure record, when that record came out, was like, game over. Like, this is a whole new world, and that record will always represent for me,
Sure.
Steven Curtis Chapman. And that is such an incredible blessing and a gift. And yet, as a creative person, as a songwriter, as a guy who writes from your life perspective right now, where you are, there's a part of you that can't help but when you play a new song, and you begin to realize, and I've heard, so funny, recently I've heard several artists say it who have been making music for a long time. They say, I've learned that when you play music, when you play a new song in concert, it's so funny. New songs have this physiological impact. They make people have to go to the bathroom. I don't know what that is, and it's like, because every time I play a new song, everybody gets up and goes to the bathroom. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Or people will say new songs make people remember their favorite song. Mm-hmm. And, you play a new song and they're like, oh man, that's great. Gosh, you know what though? It makes me think about Dive. Dive, that song, man, that was the song. That was the definitive, Steven Curtis moment for me. Yeah. Or that makes me think about the More to This Life record. Gosh, that record, I can still put that record on. I play it over and over again. And effectively what that person has done is they have given you an incredible compliment for the fact that you have ever written a song that is a part of their greatest, songs or records of all time. They love it. They want to go back to it. But they've also not said it, but what you've heard is, so really you didn't necessarily even need to write that new song for me, because I was pretty good at More to This Life, man. But thanks anyway, And so then you kind of go, whoa, okay. So is it worth all the effort? And especially now, digging in deep to those places to know that it's going to be less than in some way, maybe to someone when you write these songs, because you really want people to engage with them and connect with them. Mm-hmm. And so that's just a weird thing that happens, and some artists, everybody, I think at some point deals with it. And I know, for example, I remember years ago finding out that Billy Joel had announced that he wouldn't be writing and recording any more new music. And I thought, man, that's really sad, because that guy's a songwriting fool. He needs to write songs. I'd love to hear what he has to say now in life. But I think he maybe, I don't know, but I'm guessing he made a decision to say, I don't want to fight those demons anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't want to fight that voice that says, well, it's never going to be Piano Man, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's good. It's pretty good. But gosh, could you just play, whatever, name the song, from Billy Joel. And so for me, it was a process to have to silence all those voices. I personally, again, maybe this is an encouragement to some songwriters out there, maybe even to you, Marty. I wasn't sure I could write really good songs. I figured I can write songs. I think I still know sort of how to do that, but I don't know if I can write great songs that are on the caliber of the songs I've written? How did I do that? Was that even, maybe that was a fluke. Maybe I just I got on a wave and rode a good wave for a lot of years, but can I still do that? And, then I've got identity, issues I'm wrestling with. And God, I know my identity is in Jesus. I know it's not in my ability to write a great song, but that is a big part of who I've been all these years and who I am. And I would sit down and think, these are, good songs, but I don't know if they're great. I don't know if are they gonna move people and impact people the way, they tell me, Be Still and Know did or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of wrestling through, and one of my lyrics in the song Still, you may have caught, the lyric says, I have wrestled and I've rested and I've trusted and I've tested God's patience like a foolish man. Mm-hmm. But when I surrender once again, I come like a little child, lifting up my hands. He lifts me every time and tells me he loves me still. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you know what? The truth of the matter is, yeah, I've wrestled, and I'm going to wrestle again. Faith, spiritually, and in fact, in these songs, you're going to probably hear some of that wrestling. If anything, I said, if I have anything to offer at this point, I can offer honesty and I can offer perspective. And I have a perspective of life, obviously 14 years after the loss of our Maria that you mentioned, and the songs that were so raw, and just, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to hold on. Part of the reason why I've gave myself permission finally to silence all those voices and just make this music and write these songs was because I felt like, what I can offer is perspective at this point in my life, almost 60 years old, living through with everybody else a global pandemic, living through unprecedented times in our world of division and conflict and fighting racially and politically, and everybody taking sides, and even in the church, heartbreakingly, just seeing how divided we are in all of this. And at the same time, experiencing loss and, walking through, Mary Beth's sister, Jeannie, her husband, Barry, starts slurring his speech. He's 62 years old. He's loving life. He's at the sweet spot of retirement, enjoying his one grandson, pouring his life into that. So excited, gave his 30 years to the gas company and just a salt of the earth guy, and finds out he's got 5 cancerous brain tumors. And they tell him, you probably have maybe a year, but probably not even that. And walking with him, sitting and talking with him, and just while he would just weep and say, I don't know what to do. I don't want to die. I believe God can heal me, but I don't think he's going to. I know he might not. And does that mean I don't have enough faith? And I'm walking through that with him like I've never done before. And I'm, texting my keyboard player of many years, finding out he's in the hospital with COVID and not doing well. And I'm like, dude, we got a tour to do. He was supposed to go on the road with me this past fall. And 5-6 months later, he's passed away. Yeah. And I'm writing these songs while I'm walking this out with family, with friends, with loss all around me, and I'm seeing all of this. I'm saying, how do we not lose heart?
Yeah.
How do we not lose heart?
Yeah.
Because, man, if we look at the world around us, I'm done. I'm just checking out. I can't make sense of it. Even, so much of our faith, so many people are, they're dismantling and just deconstructing their faith because God doesn't fit in this, this world now of what's going on around me. And, all of my ideas about how this is supposed to work and how God's supposed to work. And I'm seeing that, and that's breaking my heart. And, I'm just watching all of that happen. And so songs are coming out of that. It's the way I process life. Yeah. Both of us, as songwriters, that's how we do it. We write a song about it. We try to wrestle it to the ground just, with a song. And so as I did that, these songs started to come, I'm Alive. You referenced that one. I had this that was a Colony House song. Caleb was writing a Colony House song, and he was writing a song called "Trying" that was on their last record, "Leave What's Lost Behind."
Yeah.
And he was trying to figure it out, and he had all these lyrics of, I feel like I'm trying, why do I even try?
I love that song. It's my favorite song of theirs.
Isn't that a great song?
Oh
yeah. Why do I even try? Why do I keep on? Why do I kind of keep, to lift my head up high? And all of this. And he got to that chorus and he's like, I'm not sure where to go. And I said, and I wrote a chorus. I was like, Caleb, here's why you keep trying, because we're alive. You're alive. Today, God's given you breath. So I'm going to keep trying just because I'm alive. And obviously that's enough, And so I wrote him this great chorus, and then he didn't use it, and he went on and wrote something even better. And, he wrote his version, which by the time that song was done and he had wrestled it down, I'm with you. It's one of the great Colony House masterpieces. I mean, the fist in the air of that song is like, and yet I had this, I'm like, but I still believe there's a song. It's not terribly unique or profound or something new, but it feels new to me. This idea of just a song that says, man, I've wrestled and I've beat my head against the wall, but I'm alive. And can that be enough? And that's a whole lot. And yet I forget it because I'm so stressed and can I write a song? I mean, I sat in the room I'm in right now, my studio, and I literally finally ended up on my face, just on my knees, because I was trying so hard. I was trying so hard to write a great song called "I'm Alive," because I really wanted this song to be great. And I had verses, I had this idea, all these different sort of heady things I was trying to wrestle with, and I ended up literally in tears. And I was like, God, I've been thinking. I'm thinking about this so much till I just I don't know. I can't even think anymore. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying so hard. I'm just like pounding on the doors, like, open up. I got to get this song. And that's like, maybe I just need to write that. So I wrote, I've been thinking and thinking till I just don't know what to think anymore. I've been pounding, I've been trying, and trying and pounding my fist on the floor, and it's like, but I'm not going to give in to this pain, because the fact that there's tears in my eyes must mean something. It means there's blood in my veins. I'm living and my heart's beating. And can that be enough? Because that's a lot, that's a miracle. And so maybe I just need to taste the tears, not try to fight everything and deny everything and try to get to the happy place or get to the fix, but just be right where I am and breathe and be alive, And I was like, that's the song I'm supposed to write. So I wrote that one, So I'm super excited about this new music. Obviously, every artist says that with a new record. It's like, I'm most excited about my new record. But particularly this just felt like, for me, the journey of these songs, and getting to this place to say, I have a perspective. I wrote songs, I wrote lyrics, a song that will end the record is a song called "Trying to Get Back Home." And there's a lyric in that song that when I wrote it, again, tears in my eyes, I wrote this chorus. It says, we're all trying to get back home, back to the place where our heart knows it belongs. So be kind to yourself and to everyone else on this long and winding road, because we're all just trying to get back home. Mm-hmm. I think a lyric like that, I wouldn't have probably written that 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I think as I look at the world and people struggling, everybody has a story and just even a perspective that can say, man, I'm not very kind to myself. Typically, I think all of us probably at some level, are hard on ourselves, because that's how we're supposed to be. At least that's how I grew up. There's not the kind to yourself thing kind of starts getting a little, that's a little floating out there and, never land. But beginning to realize, no, I think there's actually some really, important things that God wants us to say, that, that just giving yourself the kindness that God has given you to say, you're not going to figure all this out. And, can you just, that's part of the journey of faith is that. And so anyway, I think there's perspective in things that finally I realized I think these are songs that I need to write now at this point in my life. And hopefully people are going to hear them and be excited and want to hear them. It's encouraging. Thank you, Marty, for saying, I'm excited that Steven Curtis is giving us some new music, that's it. That's encouraging.
Well, let me encourage you with this. And unfortunately we gotta start wrapping up because Alex and your management team are going to get mad at me for going long.
I know, and they'll get mad at me too. It's you gotta stop talking.
Stop talking so long because I know you got more interviews to do. But let me just, as we wrap it up, let me encourage you with this and say, yes, every album that you've put out, all the hit songs are distinctive. In my life, each one has been distinctive at each point throughout my life and my career, and. So you putting out new music, I know the concern and the worry is that people don't want to hear new music, or they don't care as much, whatever. But let me tell you, yes, we do. We love your music. We love the messages that God has given you to put out to the world, and we are waiting. There are more people. Vastly more people wanting new music from Steven Curtis Chapman than people who don't really care. Vastly more. And so when you go out and you put out this new album and you go out and you do this new tour, I want to hear all the new music. I love I Will Be Here. I love Cinderella. I love, The Great Adventure. But man, I want to hear a tour of all this new music, and then the hits that we don't get to hear all the time. The other hits. Mixing those things in. Yeah. But so I want to encourage you with that
Thank you.
That we do want to hear it, and we are excited for it, and so you have no concerns, nothing that you need to be concerned about on that side of things. And last thing that I want to tell you real quick is that I know that growing up, Dallas Home and Ricky Skaggs were your kind of the guys that you looked up to and really kind of wanted to be like to some degree, I guess. And I want to tell you, because I never get a chance to tell you this, you are my Dallas Home and Ricky Skaggs to me. You've been that throughout my life and my career. And, I love you as a friend, as a brother, as a believer. Your family goes way back for me, obviously, but I want you to know that how much you mean to me and how much your dad means to me and your brother and your mom. And I'm just super grateful for you and for what you guys are doing and for the new music you're putting out and what you continue to do. And so I'm grateful for that. Last thing before we get in trouble is any advice that you can give to listeners, anything that you would want to say to them that want to do what you've done as a songwriter, as an artist, as a producer in music. There's still an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of conversation that I want to have with you, but we just can't do it.
I know.
Just to wrap,
I see Alex pulling up. We're going to both get fussed at. So no, but thank you, Marty. Thanks, man. Thanks for your friendship. Thanks for your encouragement over the years. You've been such a just cheerleader, in my corner, cheering me on with the music, and thanks for the music that you've made and the way you've kind of carried that on in the unique places that God's kind of put you and let you encourage others and mentor and do this podcast and the things that you've done and kind of carry on the Herb Chapman school of guitar.
Because I'm teaching, I teach guitar, so I'm still doing. I'm putting it out there.
That's awesome. I really, I would. There's so many different things, I've said over the years, bloom right where you're planted. That's when I probably said that to you at a time. Sometimes we have this idea, if I can just get to that place, that's where it can really start to matter. But it all matters, right where you are, whatever, you got the opportunity to do. If you're leading worship in a, church of, 5 people or 5,000, if you're singing at a coffee shop in front of 5 people or, 50,000 arena, all of it all matters. We have this idea in our mind that we think in terms of, numbers, it mean impact, bigger is better, all of that stuff. And that's built into the DNA of our world and our, in music world for sure. But I'm just convinced, more than ever. And I hear people that will tell me, man, I was at this thing that you did. It was, it was in the fellowship hall at a church, and you had the mullet, and there were 50 of us, and I paid, $1 for a ticket, and I'll never forget, that night and what you sang and what you said. And it really, God used that in my life, to, all extremes. And so I would just encourage, people right where you are, recognizing that it's a holy place, because God's there with you and in you. If you know that, then you realize it, and it's a powerful thing. Truth is, some people don't recognize it and acknowledge it and know it, and so they're missing, out on the reality of all that's happening with every breath that they take. But I think that's more and more. I'm still trying to learn that, but I would encourage that for all of us trying to learn it. That every breath God gives us is really a gift, as cliche as that sounds. It's a gift. We've all been reminded of it so much in these last few years, that things are, very uncertain in our world. And so just to take the every breath that God gives us, every heartbeat, and realize the sacredness of it, the wonder of it. This new album opens with a song called Welcome Back to Wonder. And it's, for me, just kind of been a part of my journey, even at this point in my life, to just not lose sight of the wonder of just being alive and where God, it shows up in this day, where he's going to show up in relationship and what's happening in the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So yeah, those are some random thoughts with your buddy, Steven Curtis. But
well, thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, bless you, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Right. Tell Alex I apologize for carrying you.
It's all good. It's all good.
But I love you. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. And we're excited for the new music and look forward to seeing you out on tour. And let's grab lunch with Herbie and hang out and just visit.
That'd be great. All right, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
All right, guys, there you have it. I hope you had a great time listening to our conversation today. I hope you take what we've talked about today and find ways to apply it to your career as well. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And please share it with all of your friends so that we can continue to get this message out to everyone around the world. Remember, Edenbrook Productions is here to help if you need consulting services via phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime. Let us know how we can help you begin to make a living in the music industry.